Hey everyone. Marketing isn't truly sustainable without effective customer retention and engagement strategies in place. In this episode, I chat with Roger Michalski, Vice President and Group Publisher over at Eagle Financial Publications. He breaks down the best way to build confidence and trust in your ideal customers. And we cover the evolution of direct marketing. We cover how to market to multiple personas, and we get into practical techniques that you can use to increase your opt-ins and subscribers while retaining a loyal base. Let's get into it. I enjoy doing these things where I get to sit down with people and I get to learn, and obviously, getting queued up for this conversation. It's fascinating. Your background's fascinating. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about sort of how you got your start and your background.
All right, well, I'll do a Reader's Digest version of my background. But so basically, I went to Radford University, graduated with a marketing degree, just stumbled into publishing, really. I started at Thompson Publishing Group, business to business marketing. It was a great place to start. I really learned the basics of direct marketing and the basics of fundamentals, the fundamentals of publishing. And I was there about 6 years, and it was absolutely fantastic. And then I moved over to St. Anthony Publishing. I was there for about 2.5 years. That was also a business to business publisher. And that was a terrific place. We got bought out, a bunch of changes happened. So I moved on. But it was actually terrific because then, I had been in business to business marketing for almost like 9 years. So I was at the point where I was going to be pigeonholed into only business to business if I hadn't really made a move to consumer at that point. And I didn't make a conscious decision to go over to consumer, but just ended up working at the Smithsonian catalog. So that got me into consumer. And I was there for a couple years. And that got me the job at Eagle. I've been at Eagle since 2001, which is just mind-boggling that I've been there for can't possibly be that long. But yeah, I've been there 20 years now, and that was owned by Tom Phillips. Some people who are older like myself will remember Tom Phillips, and I always nicknamed him the Godfather of newsletters, and
Yep.
but he had a politically conservative publishing company as well as Phillips International Resources, which was investment newsletters. And I was working on human events and the Evans Novak political report. And we had an opportunity to get forecasts and strategies written by Mark Skousen from PIR. And best thing that ever happened in my career, by far. I had always loved the stock market. I started investing as soon as I got out of school. I had always wanted to do investment newsletters, but just had never really gotten the opportunity. And long story short on that is we started off, I had this full-time job I was doing, and then I got this financial newsletter that then I had to start editing. Well, I have a marketing background. I don't have any kind of financial background, but I'm editing a financial newsletter and marketing it while I still had this full-time job with Evans Novak Political Report and Human Events. And the thing it just skyrocketed. It just blew up. And that was in 2003. June 2003 was the first issue of Forecasts and Strategies. And now I have 35 publications. We've got a direct staff of, I think I'm at 18 people now, not counting central services because we share all central services, IT and accounting and everything else with other areas of the company. We're actually owned now by Salem Media Group, and we got bought out 8 years ago, I think it is now. And so we just boomed, and last year was our best year ever, and the first several months of this year were way, way ahead of last year. So
Yeah, I think it's fascinating to me, sort of like just listening to that path to what brought you to where you're at today. I there's so much to sort of unpack in just that one, in your background, right? So you didn't even like you didn't have experience in financial, publications, but you did have a marketing, background. And, what's interesting to me is that, you sort of, I'm interpreting here, but, you sort of recognize the opportunity, sort of for what it was, even if you didn't have, a super strong, financial publications background. Is that pretty strong or pretty accurate?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, I did human resource business to business stuff, and then I did medical coding, business to business. And then I did Smithsonian catalog, totally nothing like anything else. And then
Yeah.
politically conservative publishing, and then financial newsletter publishing. So, but what I really think is that at the end of the day, direct marketing is direct marketing and
Yep.
publishing is publishing.
Yep.
And you just have to immerse yourself into that area. But the fundamentals are the same. Human nature is the same no matter
Yes.
what industry it is. People react the same ways, and we have the same triggers. And it's just knowing those triggers and learning your audience. If you know your audience, you'll know you'll be better at the triggers, and you just have to do a deep dive into knowing your audience.
I think that's exactly right. Right. So that, there is nothing new under the sun. So what we do today in digital marketing and the new tactics and things like ABM, and we think, we talk about, not that ABM's new, but, we talk about, whatever the new sort of trend is these days that we tend to like to latch onto as marketers because we like the new and flashy things, right? We like to sign up for stuff, and but it really is all the same. It's the study of human nature, and making, marketing is sort of, reducing the friction in sales and selling things, and it's fascinating to me, and I get so much out of conversations like this
When
one.
I started, I don't know. How can I be 39 and be in the industry for 30 years? I don't know how that happens, but but in the beginning, it was all direct mail. I mean,
Yeah.
there was no internet when I started. It was all direct mail.
Yep.
And then when the internet kind of hit, I still remember, the pets.com of the world, right, and all that, build it and they will come. And I remember actually interviewing with some of those companies and saying, what I've learned in direct mail and direct marketing, it relates to this, and you can really build a business on that. And everybody was
Yeah.
like, you're stupid. You just gotta,
Right.
advertise anywhere, and we're gonna, be huge, and we don't, that
Yep.
direct mail stuff. That's so old fashioned. But now think about it. Email marketing, Google, it's like we took direct mail and put it on steroids
Yes.
for, for what it is today. So
Yeah.
that background of direct mail, really served a lot of us well to get into
Yeah.
digital marketing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Building lists, the value of building an asset that you own, as opposed to, trading off the back of somebody else's platform where they can change something depending on whatever their strategy or, whichever the market winds are blowing at the time. Building your own asset that sort of helps, future proof your business, gives you a closer tie to, your customer. All of those things are super important. I mean, marketing has changed a lot, right, in the last, 30 years or so. So when you said, you've learned a lot with direct mail, and you've learned, the basic principles, you've learned about who your customer is, and knowing them so well that they feel like you sort of, you're inside their head, right? And you're using their words, and it's like they've got that kind of, or you have that kind of insight, into what drives them, what motivates them, that sort of thing. I'm just sort of wondering, like, when you're, because you have to do that by, having as many publications as you do, right? You have to have multiple sort of personas that you're writing for. How do you do that? How does that work? I mean, there's a lot of research that goes into, I mean, today, sort of in B2B, we call it ICP, right? But I mean, for you, how do you go through that research process?
Yeah, I mean that's a big question, but you know it's listening to I've got a couple of salespeople who are on the phones with the customers all day, every day.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
closer than anybody else is. I have weekly meetings with them. What are you hearing? What are their
Yeah.
fears? What
Yeah.
are they excited about right now? What are they asking you about?
Yep.
Because those are some of the best things that you can get. It's straight from the customer.
Yeah.
I still remember when I was at St. Anthony, and I was it was kind of funny, but literally like in the men's bathroom, with the owner, and he's like, Roger, do you know what the how I become successful? I was like, how is that, Gene? He goes, I'm not smart. He goes, I just listen to the customer, and if our when they call in and say, boy, I'd really like if your product did this, then I would put that in my product.
Yeah.
It goes,
Yeah.
it's as simple as that. And I
Yep.
mean, kind of ironic situation where I heard that, but it makes a good story, I guess. Um, but but I always remember that because it really is. I mean, we can think we're smart and all that, but
Yeah.
the more we think we know, the more we realize we really don't know,
Yep.
and you don't know what's going to work. How many times have you written a marketing package that you're like, this is going to be a home run, this is awesome. You send it out there and it bombs. And there's other times where you write something and you're like, yeah, it's all right, and then thing takes off.
Yep.
You have to listen to the customer, and so customer surveys, going to trade shows. In my industry, we have money shows, the big thing, and we go to several money shows a year, and that is invaluable. I mean, I technically lose money every time I go to one of those shows. By the time you fly and eat and send all the stuff and pay the outrageous fees for your booth stuff and all that, everything, and you don't get enough sales back, but you're short-sighted if you're just looking at the ROI on that, because
Absolutely.
you get to spend 3 days with your customers all day and then coming up and asking you questions, and you can really get it. They're in person. I miss
Yeah.
I can't wait in person's coming back, which is so good because I miss it so much, and I learned so much from the customers and the feedback. And so it's really listen to the customer at the end of the day. And of course, on the marketing side, it's testing, testing, testing. You can't test enough. Testing price, testing headlines, testing leads, testing offers, just all those things. You just test, 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 because you'll learn a lot from it. What pushes
Yeah.
the people's buttons.
Yeah. I think it's funny you mentioned the whole trade show thing. So I have a take on trade shows, especially being in B2B. I think you're absolutely right. If you're looking at trade shows as here's how many deals I can close from the trade show, you're sort of, I think you used the word short-sighted. I think that's probably true, right? The one thing that it's funny, I just did a LinkedIn post on this not too long ago, but it was basically talking about how if you look at it from a different perspective and you think about trade shows as a way to generate and build content and get closer to your customer in a more sort of like intimate setting, it really, all of a sudden it becomes sort of a no-brainer, right? So, understanding your customer, like you talked about, what are the hopes, what are the fears, the challenges, that your perfect customer is sort of facing, and being able to hear that, face to face. And then there's something, I don't know, this is just me, but I love just like sitting down across the table at like dinner or with somebody and just seeing the body language and how they say it as much as
Yep.
the words themselves, right? And the way that they're sitting,
That's the
the
beauty
audience sitting up.
of the live conferences, because there's
Yeah.
nothing. I mean, body
Yeah.
language is
Yeah.
everything. It
Yeah.
really is.
if I had my way, I'm not quite there yet, but if I had my way, we would do trade shows without booths or salespeople. and I, no, I mean, hopefully it doesn't come off the wrong way, but I mean that. I mean, I like no big sponsorships that cost lots of money, and no like salespeople that are, on a quota, that they're trying to hit, right? And just sort of destroys the sort of the vibe you're going after, or at the very least,
Yeah,
just,
and as
separate
direct
the
and as
two.
direct marketers, direct marketers were always about ROI, ROI,
Yeah.
ROI,
Yes.
and so that's why it's hard for us to then go to a
Yeah.
trade show and go,
Yeah.
I just lost some money on that. Is it worth
Yeah.
it? Because it is all the intangibles, and
Yeah.
I'm still, what do I do when I come back from a money show? Look how many sales we got, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then we do have meetings and say, okay, what did we hear? What were people's fears? What were they excited about? Because then we can write good headlines and good packages for them.
Yeah, that's right. And also, if you can use it as an opportunity to create good content, where you're sitting down talking with people, you're interviewing them, you're able to like bring like, I know this is sort of blasphemy, but if I was able to take somebody who knows how to do video real well instead of like one extra salesperson, I would do that, right? I would sit down with them, in a little side room somewhere, and we would just record, and create a whole bunch of good content, and talk to people about what it is that their challenges are, what are they facing right now, and then actually turning that into something that is valuable, that we can slice and dice up, right? That we can drip out on different types of channels, include them in our email, our email list, as a wrap up. I could kind of go down the list, have it part of, I'm going to be out of the office next week, not at an event, but actually at our office, and not half, a good chunk of my time anyway is going to be doing like little mini interview podcasts like this one. But in person, where we are able to sit across the table from each other and talk a little bit. And I'm going to get, 2 weeks worth of content out of that, 3 days that I'm there.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it's great. Yeah.
yeah, I think, just, when you're a CMO and you're trying to justify this spend to your CFO, right? This is one of the ways that you can sort of do that and say, look, I can create 2 months worth of dripped out content. It would have cost me 60 grand, but this thing's only going to cost me 30. You're getting twice the bang for your buck.
Yeah,
Plus,
yeah.
you're probably going to get a few customers out of it too, right?
Yeah. When we go to Freedom Fest, it's a little different, but Mark Skousen's one of our financial gurus, and he puts on this event every year called Freedom Fest, and the lineup is unbelievable. I mean, the speaker lineup is crazy good, and my editor goes and he writes stories every day while at Freedom Fest. Hey, I'm here at Freedom Fest, and I'm talking to Steve Forbes, or I'm talking to Kevin O'Leary. Actually, he ended up I'm actually kind of jealous because I missed it. My associate publisher and my editorial director end up Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank,
Yep.
took them out to dinner, and they got to
Awesome.
spend an entire evening with them. He bought everything, expensive wines, expensive steaks, everything, and we ended up getting so many stories from that.
Yeah.
And I missed out. I wasn't I wasn't lucky enough. Oh, hold on, sorry. All right. But that would never happened if we
Yeah.
didn't. We weren't there at a live event.
I couldn't agree more. I think the other, like, again, just to go back to like budget justification, how much would it cost to have that exact same conversation with Kevin O'Leary in a sponsored, arrangement somehow, right?
Yeah.
It's going to cost
Yeah.
you 30 grand for an hour, for a webinar
Exactly.
or whatever that isn't going to give
I don't
you
know how much Mark paid
to
him to speak there, but I know it was a lot. But
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So no, that is, I think that's really powerful, right? Everybody's sort of rebooting, their budgets, their event-based budgets, and I honestly think there's going to be a lot of people sort of rethinking how they ROI an event these days. Coming off of a year of just doing it all virtual. So, in terms of like practical wins that you have, because that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to say, here's like a practical thing that I can do and apply to my marketing, again, by the end of the week, by the end of the month, something like that. What are some of the wins that you've seen lately that have been sort of like eye opening, that people would be like, oh, well, maybe they take a page out of Roger's book and so this is something that I might be able to do to my own
Okay, let
campaign.
me. I guess I'll use it, probably our biggest win that we've had in the last year and a half. We have a investment newsletter called Retirement Watch, and it's a little bit different. Most of our letters are really, buy this, sell this, and
Yeah.
this has some of that in it, but it's mainly the real USP of it is that we're helping you plan your retirement and making sure you're keeping money away from the government and that it's going to your heirs and how to avoid taxes and really protect what you built your entire life.
Right.
And about a little over a year and a half ago, this Secure Act got passed by Congress, and it was passed. I forget the exact vote number, but it was overwhelmingly passed, and nobody really knew about it. But of course, Bob Carlson, the editor of Retirement Watch, he's on top of everything, so he knew it, and we started talking about, hey, what's the next marketing package going to be? Is there, and new laws are always a good thing, or, changes in the government or whatever
Right.
lead to be good packages. Well, the Secure Act that most people didn't know about, that is really can harm your retirement, especially, the government's really coming after your money, especially when you die and going after, your money that should go to your heirs.
Right.
And so we filmed about a 45, 50-minute marketing piece that was, of course, we didn't tell them that it was a Secure Act. We kept that a secret. But it's like, look, here's what can happen to you. The government's coming after your money, so nobody likes the government coming after your money. It's a law that you haven't heard of, and and then it was great because our beginning of that, and not everybody can do this, but I guess you could on a green screen. But our building, the top, we're in Washington D.C., and the top of our building overlooks the Capitol. So we had him in the very beginning standing on our rooftop with the Capitol right behind him, going, "Look what these clowns behind me have done to you. They're coming after your money," and follow me downstairs to our office, and we recorded it in the conference room. So I mean, it wasn't like slick green screen, slick looking. It was very, here I am in my office just talking to you. And I think sometimes those come across better than flashy stuff.
Yep.
And
Overproduced. Yeah.
yeah. And that campaign has just been incredible. I mean, it obviously worked really well to our house file at first. So we're like, okay, great. So then we tested in direct mail. Great. So then we started testing it on the ad networks. And let's just say in the last 14 months, we've doubled the subscription base to Retirement Watch in just a little over a year. And so here's a couple things we learned from that. Not only all the things I just mentioned that made it a good promo, had all the pieces, but the ad network. So here's what I think is really important on especially consumer side of things is the ad networks, because you can really scale on the ad networks. Now here's the thing: most of your stuff's going to fail on the ad networks. But when you get that home run, the one that works, it can really be a home run. So you just got to keep testing. Don't get discouraged. Keep at it. Just go to the next one. That one didn't work. Move on. Go to the next one.
Yeah.
Then, once you do have that home run, you got to worry about fatigue, of course.
Yeah.
And so even while it's doing well and you have maybe one ad, one headline or one image in the ad or an advertorial, and I'll dive into a little bit of that in a second, but you just got to keep testing new headlines, new images, new advertorials. We even switched up the beginning of the video a little bit, just to kind of keep it going, because it would start to fatigue, of course, and
Yep.
you want to get ahead of that fatigue. That's I think the biggest thing there is you want to get ahead of that fatigue,
Yeah.
because you want to let it roll, obviously, when it's doing well, but it ain't gonna last forever.
Right.
We all know that. So you got
Yep.
to get ahead of that fatigue and just keep testing, testing, testing.
Yep.
And we did several different things. Different images, different headlines, but then sometimes, and we found on different ad networks, different things would work. And some ad networks, this campaign didn't work at all. And
Hmm.
I can't explain that, but some networks do really well on certain things, and others it won't. And some of
Yep.
them we go straight from the ad to the actual video. Some there's an advertorial in between. So you talk about this, law that's been passed. Click here, government's coming after your money. You click here, and then it's a 500 word advertorial, talking about it. So it sounds, it's, I'm sure everybody knows what an advertorial is, but it's what appears to be an editorial piece, but it's really, leading to
Right.
make you click to go to the actual campaign.
Hmm.
And some ad networks having that advertorial in between boosted results, and others it depressed. So I'm probably going to say this over and over again: test, 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 test. But
Yeah. I think what you just hit on was super important, and it actually affects a lot of marketers who are trying to deploy budget. They tend to focus exclusively on measurable, like last click, lowest funnel kind of ad channels, right? And sort of forget that, or maybe are just on too tight of a leash, in terms of a budget, to be able to focus on things that are a little bit further up. And it's got to be holistic, right? I mean, you have to look at it like it's an entire funnel, not just one little small piece that you can immediately ROI. Because if you do that, you sacrifice reach and scale, and what ends up happening is you end up with a campaign that's, a third as effective as it could have been. And I do believe that's where the testing comes in, right? So, I mean, the other thing that you just mentioned is, offer is going to trump sort of optimization all day long, right? If that makes any sense. So getting the right offer, making sure that it resonates really well with the audience that you're putting it in front of, and lining up, those channels to be able to do that is, gold for, right.
yeah,
And,
and
and then,
here's
and then
here's
you
another little
test and
caveat.
optimize, right?
Yeah. Yeah, here's another little caveat that on that particular campaign is we offered a free book. We called
Yeah.
it the New American Retirement Plan, and it was a PDF,
Okay.
and we found people were a little upset that it was a PDF and not a real book, and our cancel rate was a little high at first, and we were getting a lot of complaints on that. So we tested, okay, let's print it out. It's not going to be in hardcover or anything, but at least if we could send them a printed one, and we increased the price by $10 to cover that.
Hmm.
And you know what? We got more orders. We got more orders when we raised the price by $10 and made sure that they knew that it was a hard book, not a
Yeah.
hardcover, but a hard copy book.
Right.
And and our cancel rate went down. So you want to talk about a win-win. But
Yeah.
again, you know what do? We listen to the customer again.
Yeah. And now, was that for your house file, or was that for something else?
On the house file, it wasn't that big an issue, but when we
Uh-huh.
went to the ad networks, that's when it became an
So,
issue.
okay, let me get this straight. So you did a printed out copy, you charged $10 more, you
Hmm.
got more orders, and you got their physical mailing address.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
I love
Home
it.
run.
So that's pretty cool. And then, I mean, I've seen and done tests like that where we have said, we're trying to build a physical mailing list, and we've done a series of tests around it. And what we did at first is we would hit them with the offer. It would come to the landing page, and then we would collect the email address right out of the gate. And then we would ask them, do you want us to mail it to you? Right. And of course, there's a certain number of uptake for that. And we would actually have the email address and the physical mailing address. And obviously one is less friction than the other. And, but we got both, in 30 or 40% of the cases, or uptake of, 30 to 40%. So, it worked, it worked really well in that particular scenario. I can't remember if we actually charged more for that. But in your case, you actually it was win-win, right?
I mean, we didn't give them a choice. We didn't give them a choice. We just upped the price by $10 to try to cover our costs on it, and well, maybe make a buck or two too. But but we tested it head to head, and like I said,
that's awesome.
We actually got more orders on the higher price, so it was awesome.
Yeah, and one thing that we should probably go back to is there's a particular audience that you were putting this in front of, right? And so maybe that's not going to work real well for, somebody who's a millennial or somebody, that is super digital focused. They're only on, mobile devices, but, for your age
very
group,
good point. Yeah, very good point, Eric, because our target audience is 55
plus
males. And I say 55 plus, and it's really more like 65 plus.
Right.
On Retirement Watch, it's like definitely 65 or 70 plus. So that demographic, they grew up in the print, so they want that hard copy. They want to curl up on the couch and flip the pages. That's what they want to do.
That's amazing. But I think, so you have offer, right? You have audience. There are a few different things that sort of go into that mix, but I think the core of it is, focus on who your audience is and then give them what they want, creates the offer, and then test the messaging, until you're just, your fingers are bleeding, right? Because you're not going to get, very, very rarely are you ever going to get lucky up front. What's going to end up happening is you iterate, and then there's something in the wording, where again, they think you're sort of like taking you're reading their email. I've heard that before. They're like, you've done it right on the copy when you've got like customers or prospects coming to you and saying, have you been reading my email? Because this is exactly what I was saying. Right. When I was talking to my, marketing manager or whatever, right. It's like, have you been reading my, and I think that's, when you sort of like struck on something. I think the opposite is also
the other thing is when you get complaints, actually. When you get complaints, that means you have struck a nerve and you're doing really well. We've gotten more complaints on that campaign that's working great. I get Facebook notifications, as people are commenting on the Facebook posts, which is just a campaign, and I go in and of course I'm deleting them, because people are like, oh, this guy's just a snake oil salesman, and why won't he just tell me what this is, and he's trying to sell me something, and there's a bunch of those, but they're getting a bunch of those because they really did want to know, and that's why so many people are buying is so negative's not always bad.
No, I think you learn, right? I mean, it's I love reading Amazon reviews of things, like of books, because what you'll find is like, have you ever noticed that? Like there's no, it's always like 1s and 5s. Like 1 star or 5 star, right? There's no 3 stars, or very, very few 3 stars. Nobody's inspired to go and like write about something unless they're really, really thrilled with the thing or they're really, really mad at the thing, right? True. It's usually the latter, by the way, but in whatever. But not a lot of people are moved to get off the couch, to do a 3-star review. Right. And so,
that was all right.
it was okay, but I'm going to take the time out to write about that, and I think that's what's happening, with like Facebook reviews or when you're doing reviews, like, or sorry, when you're hearing comments or seeing comments about a LinkedIn post that you do, or, email, like when you send it out and you get a bunch of responses, it's going to be one side of the spectrum or the other side of the spectrum. And this is just a study of human nature, right? So one way or the other. And I guess what I was going to say, and I got off on that tangent, but what I was going to say is the opposite is also true, right? So you've got all the good stuff that comes back, but then what if you don't hear anything at all? What if you hear crickets? And I'm curious as to how you handle crickets. You send out an offer, you put a bunch of time and money and effort and blood, sweat, and tears into this new product. You send it out, and it just, what does that tell you?
Well, you missed the mark, and this is one thing that I wish somebody had told me when I was young, and because we all think every one of our ideas is a great idea. That's why we put all the effort into it and send it out. And I think I mentioned earlier, we don't really know. We think we know, but we don't. And if it's a total bomb, and it's crickets, as you called it, I've learned if you try to, what's the old phrase, turn lemons into lemonade, you can't do that with marketing packages. If it's bad and it didn't, and there's crickets and the response rate sucked, you know what? Giving it a little bit of a facelift, it ain't gonna help you. It really doesn't. And I've wasted more time in my career on, but we can make that better. We can make that better. And I learned at some point, I don't know when it was, hopefully sooner rather than later, but not soon enough for sure, that if it isn't working, bury it. Just, it didn't work, move on, because it really is a home run business at the end of the day. And you want to hit the singles and doubles, but if you're striking out, maybe that turns into a single, maybe, and you're better off just starting over again. Now, if it's, let's just say, if you're on the ad networks, then you're looking, we're looking for, depending on the product, a 60% or 70% ROI. So bring in 60 or 70 cents for every dollar you spend, and if you're at 50 cents, a couple tweaks might get you to that 60 to 70 that you need. If it's 20 cents, you've got to triple the response rate. You ain't going to do it.
That's not an incremental. That's
you ain't going to do it.
You're not going to incrementalize yourself through that. Right?
Nobody's that
good. That's right. That's totally right. I think that's so. I sort of tell my folks that I say, something to the effect of, the only thing about, making a tough decision is making it 6 months later, right? Or 6 months later.
That's a good line. Right? I'm stealing that.
because there's an opportunity cost, to
Absolutely.
everything. And when we get into this position of, because we have so many tools right now, right, as marketers, we have so many opportunities, so many things that we can do, so many software packages we can sign up for, so many, people, different types of people we can bring on. And we just, we can spend so much time spinning our wheels that we can never get anywhere, and instead of focusing on the things that really are, sort of these prime movers, right, that are really going to move the needle. And I think, when we're not doing that, then we sort of underestimate, what we can actually accomplish, even though it takes us a little bit longer, maybe, or something. In the long run, you can get more of those things out. You can do more of those bigger, chunkier, lever pulling things, than you can and micro improving, your way through life. I think it's totally true. So when I hear crickets, and this is why I love digital marketing, right? I mean, especially the stuff that we do, is we have instant feedback, right? In your world, it's a little bit more difficult because it's like you're putting a lot of time and money into one thing. You're going to do it right. You're going to optimize it. You're going to put it out there. For us, in a campaign that we do, let's say it's a digital campaign or an email campaign or a new product feature release or whatever, we get quite literally instant feedback. And I read all of the comments. I read every one of them. And it's not because, for any other reason other than the fact that I want to know what both sides of the spectrum are saying. Right. But I also know to listen for the crickets, if that makes any sense. Right. So I know, it's like if they don't respond at all and they're giving me threes, virtual threes, or they're not saying anything, I know that I'm completely off message. Right. And I've got to work on that. I've got to tweak that. And in my experience, like I get that with my sales team. Right. I know when I'm off, when my sales team or my BDRs or my SDRs, when they start getting when they're ghosted, when somebody's ghosting them, that right there is a big, big leading indicator, right? And when they're getting ghosted and there's no response at all, right? Not positive, negative, nothing. I know we've got some work to do. So those are things that, you sort of cross disciplines, a little bit, but it's sort of the same principle. So.
Absolutely. Yep.
So one of the things that we like to ask, or I like to ask, is just, it's sort of the magic wand question. It's like, okay, well, I'm doing this thing that I've got today. I'm sort of got my environment that I operate in today. But if I had a magic wand and I could sort of wave it over the top of something, and make it better, what would it be?
Wow. This is, magic wand. So we're talking magic wand here. Email deliverability. If we could get to everybody's inboxes who asked us for it and want it, especially, I know it's the case everywhere, but in financial publishing, it's even more so a problem because there are so many spammers out there, and credit card companies or a lot of spammers. So we have a lot of unfriendly words that we have to use in everyday. Interest rate is a spam word. How can you talk about financial stuff, what's happening in the world, in the financial world, in the markets, without talking about interest rates?
Right.
But it's a spam word, and it's a no-no, and it'll get blocked for that sometimes. So I guess a magic wand, not that no control over, but if I could get into everybody's email box that really wanted me and asked me to be part of their inbox, my whole business would rise up quite a bit, because it's a full-time job, like working with the ISPs and everybody, and no, they really did want this, and
so that's fascinating to me. So these are people that presumably have not only opted in, but they've double opted in.
Well, we don't always double opt in.
Okay.
I know that's not the best practice, but
okay. But at least single
even our
opt
paid
in,
people.
right?
But sometimes we have problems with our paid content. People pay us $1,000, $1,500 a year for some of these things, and they're like, I'm not getting my alerts. I'm not getting my trade alerts.
Right.
And you're on Comcast. Yeah, Comcast hates us. I can't tell you how many times we've talked to Comcast over the years. I don't even want to think about how many times, because it'll piss me off.
And that's sort of taking money out of your pocket, right? It's either it's a challenge with the consumer experience, right? Because they're not getting,
and even if they understand, they don't care. They're not going to change their email. People don't change their emails. And we'll be like, okay, well, why don't you try to be Gmail or try to do this, and they don't want to do that.
Right. So hypothetically, the magic wand is you would 100% deliverability, right?
That would be
and
my
and
that would be my dream. Yes.
right, 100%, well, 100% channel deliverability. So I guess my question would be, is that limited to, for example, is that limited to email, the email channel, or are there other channels that give you 100% deliverability, but not necessarily at scale? In other words,
Well, we're doing more text messaging, but we're not. I mean, a lot on the editorial side, not a lot on the marketing. And we probably should be doing more and pushing that, but we have just this, fear of people getting a little pissed off of their, phone
text
going off,
messages.
over and
Yeah,
over and over again.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and but it's been successful, so we really should be doing more of it
Right,
because it does get through. That gets
right.
through, no problem.
So is that a text message? I'm just thinking out loud. Is that a text message that you send that's an alert in the form of like an alert, right? That has a link that goes to a particular page that all your content lives on, where their paid newsletter lives on?
Yeah,
Is that what that would
exactly.
be?
So especially, you get a trade alert. Hey, buy, Exxon today at X price.
Yep.
Or some a lot of it is just your latest fast money alert issue is out, click here, and then
Yep.
then that leads them to the page with everything. Some of the
Yep.
trading services we have that are much more quick and people really don't care about the background. They just want to be told exactly what to do, and that's it. On
Yeah.
those, we'll actually just say, buy
Do
Microsoft
this.
at X
Yep.
price, stop price
Yep.
this, and that'll be the whole
Yep.
text message, and they like
Yep.
that too. It kind of
Yep.
depends. But then we've also sent out marketing, basically a link to, the marketing piece, whether it be a video or an HTML.
Yep.
And, you don't have a whole lot of room in that text message. But, if you can just get them to click on that, that's been effective. But you don't have a whole lot of words there. So you got to be really
Yeah.
concise and you got to be really good.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, but it's two different messages, right? One is act, and then the other is alert, right?
Hmm.
Click to view the whole page. And is there a so that's interesting. Like now I've got my marketing hat on, my brain turning a little bit. So is there a retargeting component to what you're doing now? So like when somebody hits your site, you sort of like you've tagged them, and then you're running like really really low cost, super super cheap ads on web or social.
We do a little bit of that. It hasn't been that effective for us. I know a lot
Hmm.
of people it's very effective for.
Hmm.
It has not been really effective, so it's a really small part of our business, really small part.
Interesting. So what's happening is they're running the ads, in like I've seen, for example, I've seen success with companies that have like a sort of a similar project, to what you're doing, and not
Hmm.
strictly financial, but like advice related. I'll just call it that.
Okay.
And they what they do is, sort of like a static dynamic, or sorry, a static ad that is focused around like a almost like a case study kind of format, right?
Hmm.
XYZ got this, here, click here, here's how, or read about how, sort of thing. Or like better yet, like a compressed advertorial look to it,
Hmm.
in a retargeting form. So,
So
you know,
that's interesting because I don't have results yet, but we just were talking about this recently, and on the retirement watch campaign that has been so successful, and again that's about a 50-minute video. We're thinking about retargeting people and just sending them to the order page and changing
hmm,
the order page
yeah,
to have a little bit more information, just assuming that either one, they watched the video and didn't act, or didn't want to sit through a 50-minute video. And so could they get all the same information? They were interested enough to click.
Yeah.
So we're in the middle of designing and writing that right now. So I hope it works. And what you just said makes me a little more encouraged that it'll work.
Yeah, I mean, it's you got three major sort of inflection points, in somebody's buyer journey, right? And what you're talking about is somebody who's sort of in that middle stage that has shown intent, by at the very least coming through and wanting to consume the content or the video that you've got, but they haven't been sort of, sold, right? And so what you're doing is you're coming back around and hitting them with a sort of a follow-up message that makes it real clean and concise. To get them to act. Yeah, that makes sense. So I don't know. I feel like we could kind of keep going for hours, but I don't want to do that to you. We've been talking for like an hour, I think, at this point. So let's. So I would absolutely love, Roger, to have you back on. If there's a way that we could convince you to do that, we could probably spend some more time and talk, in a different.
No, I'd love that. Yeah, I'd love to be happy to do that. Yeah,
this was a ton of fun. But I was just kind of curious at this point. So how do people get a hold of you? In terms of, if they wanted to ask you questions or get a hold of you after listening.
all right. Yeah, so I mean, they can email me. My email is rmichalski, and that's Michalski, so R for Roger, Michalski, at eaglepub.com, so eagle like the bird, pub, short for publishing, not for an English pub, eaglepub.com. So rmichalski at eaglepub.com. And yeah, feel free. I always love to meet new people and discuss ideas and share ideas, because I know they reach out to me. I'm going to learn from them as well. So that's what it's all about, helping each other out.
I think that's exactly right. There's like, this is such a, I mean, it's such a small world of people who really sort of get it, right? And exchanging those ideas, try to like talk to each other about like, what are the wins that you're seeing? How can I sort of like slice and dice that and sort of take it into my own, make it my own, and apply it to my own, my own marketing. I think that's what it's all about, right? So this is
Absolutely.
cool. Well, Roger, thanks so much. I appreciate it. And if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know how I can return the favor. This has been awesome.
All right. Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, and look forward to doing it again, Eric.